This is the Church of St. Paul in the Desert. Now, this is one of the things. I'm the old guy, so I get to sit here, and you guys have to look at me. Today is a special day in the church. It's not one of the most important days, but it's a day when we remember somebody who was a special person in the life of the church. And if nothing else from this sermon, you're going to learn the name of a Native American saint. Okay? Can you say Episcopal? Say it again. Episcopal, right? And I've got a card for you. If anybody ever traded baseball cards, this is a saint card now. There's one for each of you guys. Okay, so Episcopal was the first Native American ever made a priest. Now, I'm a priest in the church, and Episcopal was the first Native American ever made a priest. And that happened in 1869. So approximately, 130 years? 130 years ago, he was made a priest, and he lived until he was 95. And he only worked at one church. So I've only been here 25 years. He was there 27 years. He was there 44. So now, one of the things that I think is important is that when we think about saints, we think about folks like, I don't know if you can even think of a saint. Saint Francis? Yeah.
Grandma, she's 95.
You've got a 95-year-old grandma.
Yeah.
And I bet she's a saint, too.
No.
No? She's not a saint. Okay. Well, I think there's going to be a message after the service about that. But one of the things is that a lot of the saints that we honor in the church look like me, or maybe even Victoria. But Episcopal looks kind of different, doesn't he? Episcopal was a native leader who was made a deacon. I'm not yet ready to ask another question for you, Mario, but in just a minute I'll be ready for you. But so I've got a question. Have any of you ever been bullied? You have. Yeah. You have never been bullied, Mario. No. Somebody thinks you've been bullied. Well, I used to get bullied. Do you know why? You know why one of the reasons that I got bullied? I had a big mouth. And I'd say things, and then people didn't like it. But also I was very, very skinny. I was incredibly skinny. I looked like, my dad said I looked like a cab with its car doors open, because all you could really see were my ears. So I was skinny, and I got bullied. And the people of Episcopal were the Ojibwa Sioux Native people from northern Minnesota. And there was going to be a fight where folks were going to go, and some of his people were going to go and try to beat up on some other people. And do you know what he did? He went and warned the other people. And so when they found out they weren't going to be able to get a surprise on them, they didn't have a fight. And guess what? They were mad at him because he stopped the fight. They wanted to have a fight. So do you remember the lesson that Mr. Steinsteele read? Beautiful on the mountains are the messengers of peace. Episcopal was a messenger of peace. Do you know anybody who's a messenger of peace? Come on, Mario. Sometimes your parents.
Sometimes your friends, and sometimes my cousins, sometimes some people.
So sometimes virtually everybody you know is a messenger of peace. I think that's pretty good. Anybody else, any of you others know a messenger of peace? No? Well, here's the good news. You all get to be messengers of peace. You are folks who know about Jesus, right? You love Jesus. Now you've heard about emigabo. Say it for me. Emigabo. Emigabo.
Okay.
And you've heard his story. So do you think that you could warn another town that people were going to come and try to beat up on them? Do you think you could stop a fight rather than just participate in a fight? No? Or yes or no? Yeah. Yeah. And I will do my best to not get beat up again. I'm not quite so skinny anymore, so I don't have that same problem. But that reading that was there was that it's very important to God that God's people are peacemakers. That they aren't people who they don't bully people. But the other thing is the lesson that Mr. Idukas Baker read talked about shepherds and how shepherds, like leaders like me, shouldn't do it greedily, but they should do it with care. They should do it to make life better for other people, not just to put themselves in a better place. That's about being a peacemaker, is doing things for others. So here's your homework. And of course, you just got out of school this week, right? And you were hoping not to have homework. But I've got a little bit of homework for you. I would like you to think of a place where you can be a peacemaker. You don't need to do it right now, but when you go home, I'd like you to think of a place where you could be a peacemaker, where you could be somebody that moves away from a fight, or somebody that leads for the good of others rather than just for yourself. Yes, Mario?
In the mountains?
In the mountains, that's a good place to be a peacemaker. But right here is good too. Yes, Christoph. Orlando is a place where they need peacemakers, aren't they? Isn't it? It's a place where a lot of people are hurting. Don't you wish there'd been more peacemakers there yesterday? It makes me sad. Now, I don't usually do this. Do you mind if I talk to the adults for a minute?
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to stay here, or do you want to? You want to stay here? Okay. I'm going to just say just a couple words to everybody else. And it has to do with hate crime, violence. It's a hurtful thing to even talk about. But Emigabo was somebody who his own people were treated in incredibly horrible ways by our government and other governments, not just ours. But can you think of the ways in which you've come across folks who it was easy to talk about them as these other people and so depersonalize them that when something bad happened, it wasn't any important anymore because it was them? Somebody earlier today reminded us that in Iraq, in Syria, events like this are happening with clockwork regularity. And people find it almost impossible to ever feel safe. I think as Christians, we have a responsibility to listen to that message of the one who says, "Blessed is the messenger of peace who runs upon the mountains." We need to be attentive when we hear messages of hate, when we hear people dismissed just because of their orientation, because of their ethnicity, their religion, or their food. If people are dismissed for any reason, as Christians who are called to be faithful shepherds, who are called to be messengers of peace, we can't solve everything, but we can stand up and say, no, we don't talk about other people like that. It might be costly. You might lose friends. I might lose friends. But I think that God is calling us, calling our children, calling our grandparents to be peacemakers and faithful shepherds. And I could talk a long time about this stuff, but I don't need to, because our liturgy talks about it. Look at the hymns that we're singing. There's a verse in virtually every hymn that talks about it. In the communion prayer that we'll say that Victoria will lead at the altar, it talks about the place we are as humans and our desire to have God move us to a place where we become peacemakers. And then remember that we come to that table where Jesus welcomes absolutely everybody. And Jesus invites us to be part of his body, and as his body, to be peacemakers, to be Christ to the rest of the world, a world that has nobody that is other, only people who haven't yet arrived as welcome guests at Christ's table. Amen.